기자부대, hop on the beat!
Welcome back to another JoJo chapter review. This time we'll be taking a look at the 9th chapter of Crazy Diamond's Demonic Heartbreak, the prequel to Part 4 starring Josuke and Hol Horse. In the last chapter, the duo set their sights on getting Boingo's book back from Ryoko, who's trying to use it to learn the truth about her cousin's death. Meanwhile, we finally got the reveal of the main villain of the story, the police officer Karaya, who was the one who stole pet sounds from Egypt. This chapter begins with an inner monologue from our newly revealed antagonist. We see that he's an elitist that thinks he's above the rest of humanity. We get a flashback of Karaya as a child talking to his grandfather. He's the one who told him to never open his heart to humans. The grandfather says that before World War II, he was sent on an intelligence operation to St. Moritz, Switzerland, where he saw what it meant to transcend all of creation. Obviously, this is referring to the events of the ending of Part 2. The grandfather was one of the vampires in Kars' army created by the Stone Mask. He mentions that the one who taught him has departed into a void far away, of course referring to Kars' defeat at the end of the story. The grandfather says that since his son was born before he awakened, he didn't inherit his power, but he says that once Karaya reaches adulthood, he'll share some of his essence with him. This implies that it is possible for a vampire's power to be passed down to their children. I would say that this conflicts with Dio's sons, but they were still created when Dio was not fully in control of Jonathan's body. Next, the implication seems to be that Karaya has already received his grandfather's vampiric essence. Of course, at the moment, he obviously isn't a vampire, otherwise he'd be dying in sunlight. But I think this is meant to be a sort of Vanilla Ice situation, who was also not a vampire right away until Polnareff pierced his brain. Karaya meets up with Boingo before we move back to Josuke's perspective. Josuke confronts Ryoko about what exactly the book has to do with her learning about Noriaki's death. Hol Horse shows up and tries to get Ryoko to hand over the book, since he knows how dangerous it could be. Josuke tries to convince him to hear her out, and ends up using Crazy Diamond to trap him in a dumpster to stop him from taking it. Ryoko runs away from Josuke and starts questioning her reasoning for doing this at all, since it won't bring Noriaki back. She most of all wants to find out that his death wasn't her fault. She realizes that the fuse waiting to be lit she read about in the book was actually herself. Pet Sounds flies over her and she falls under its ability. She leaves behind the book, and we see that the prediction now shows Ryoko being given a gun and Hol Horse being shot through the head. We see that Karaya has the book now and that he knocked out Boingo. The chapter ends with him saying that he now has control over the past and the future. Overall, this was a fantastic chapter. The biggest thing, of course, is the real debut of Karaya as this story's villain. I always thought that there'd have to be something more to him, but bringing vampires into the story is definitely not what I expected. It's a pleasant surprise to see Kodono draw from something in JoJo's past like that, much like he did in his previous JoJo work, Purple Haze Feedback. That story had a subplot involving the Stone Mask, but it stopped just short of actually turning one of the characters into a vampire. But this time it looks like we'll definitely see Karaya become a vampire. I imagine it'll happen much in the same way of Vanilla Ice. He'll be seemingly killed and then immediately revive as one. It'll be fun to see how Hol Horse and Josuke have to deal with a vampire, especially since it's still possible that he has some kind of stand ability of his own that we haven't seen yet. One more clue about his past may be how he ended up learning about Pet Sounds, which we still don't know, as well as how he ended up stealing him in the first place, since according to the old woman, it seems like he just disappeared out of the cage with no trace. We also don't know the whereabouts of Karaya's vampire grandfather, although we may learn about that later. In the previous video, I also mentioned that we weren't yet sure about Karaya's gender, meaning that this could have been the first female main antagonist in a JoJo story. But as I suspected, the chapter does in fact confirm that Karaya is a man. Another highlight this month was the friction between Josuke and Hol Horse, who both have some different motivations when it comes to Ryoko and the book. And of course, Ryoko is going to play a huge role in the future where she'll supposedly shoot Hol Horse. I imagine there'll be some kind of twist of fate where the book is shot through, just like the bullet that retired Hol Horse during his last appearance in Part 3. I'm definitely looking forward to next month's chapter, and it looks like we'll be coming to the end of the story pretty soon. Keep up with the channel since I'll definitely be making another review when more of the story is revealed. If you want to be updated on new videos or chapters like this one, join the Hum and Beat Discord using the link in the description. To receive rewards like Discord perks and some uncut videos, you can support the channel on Patreon. And finally, for future videos, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons. Thank you to Alex Ramirez, Doorbell, Ashton Joseph Miller, Crayon, Rigo Vids, Zucato, Sentai, Pumpkin Doge, Marrow, Almighty Quarth, Oof, Cowrie, Halil, Gatlin Grove, Vess, Lime Jinjo, 17 Hit Combo, Phantom Kai, and Sponge Cake.